Did you speak to Porzingis' brother yesterday? Did you? Your newspaper did? Who?
Yeah, I spoke to him late yesterday afternoon.
And?
Well, he's not too surprised, a little upset. I mean, I think they figured that there was a chance that this could be out there. They don't think it's going to happen. They think the Knicks would kind of be crazy to do it. But at this point, nothing surprises them in terms of, what the Knicks could do. And I think once Kristaps did not show up for his exit meeting, I think kind of all bets were off at that point. The Knicks still haven't spoken to him since then, which absolutely makes no sense. So everything is on the table. I tend to doubt that he's going to get traded. Why would you trade it? You're trying to rebuild, and he's a 21-year-old kid that you already have 2 years under your belt trying to develop. So that makes no sense to trade him.
Unless they figure that he's the only possible piece that could bring in absolutely anything and kickstart something that was 80 and 166 over the last few seasons, Frank. I think it's sheer madness. And the thing that I have a problem with the most is it is an admission that the last 3 years was a failure, and the person who failed at it feels completely comfortable to go ahead and hit a reset button, which means it's the problem from up top. That's the way reading of it. Frank, you tell me how it's landing there in the metropolitan area.
I think that's how a lot of people look at it, because how can you say you're rebuilding and you're going to trade this guy, then you're going to start all over, and if you're going to get just draft picks, that's the great unknown. And you don't know about, I was just looking back at like the 2012 draft. You had Anthony Davis was first. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist was second. Look how he's panned out. Bradley Beal's a good player. Deion Waiters was fourth. Tristan Thompson's fifth, but that's a role player. You had, Terrence Ross was the eighth pick. Austin Rivers was the 10th pick. Yeah, those are good players. But, you have a guy like Kristaps Porzingis. If Porzingis was in the draft today, I would suggest to you he would be the number one pick. Once again, he's only 21 years old. So I can't – maybe Phil Jackson is doing this as a way to shake Porzingis up a little bit and say, oh, you think that you can call us out and not show up at a meeting and we're going to get nervous? Well, guess what? There's always a possibility that we can trade you. So it seems to be silly. I think you'd want to maintain a good relationship with your best player. But then again, Phil did not maintain a great relationship with Carmelo Anthony. And we see how that all turned out. And that seems to be going down the same road as Porzingis. At some point, the Knicks have to end this nonsense. They have to either fly over to Latvia or bring him back here and talk to him. Because why would, we know how important one player is on a basketball team. It could be the difference maker. And why have a bad relationship with this guy who's supposed to be the star of your team?
Well, so what is the Carmelo situation? Because I imagine that's one star player, obviously in his 30s, that we haven't heard being bandied about when you've got the Paul Georges and Jimmy Butlers of the world being thrown out there. That would be certainly a name that would garner some interest and certainly shake things up in this super team era of everybody trying to combine forces to get in the Warriors district, Frank.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense, and I don't know what kind of deal the Knicks could do. I can't imagine the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to trade Kevin Love for Carmelo Anthony. That would make no sense. But if I were Cleveland, maybe you're hoping that Carmelo could work on some kind of buyout, and then you could sign him to obviously a really low number to bring him in. Maybe there's some kind of trade, and you get a third team involved. I think at this stage, Carmelo knows that his future is not in New York. If he wants to kind of change the narrative on the last part of his career, he's going to need to move on. And if he goes to Cleveland and ends up with LeBron, at least for 1 year, that's a good thing. And who's to say that the two of them don't get up and leave and go to L.A. the next summer, which would also be on the table. So I think at this point, Carmelo knows that his future in New York is over. It's not going to happen here, even though he is under contract and even though he still has a final say on whether or not he gets traded to a certain team, but also the Clippers would be involved as well. So I expect something to happen. Probably in July, maybe even in August, but I think something's going to happen before training camp with Carmelo.
And the thing about the Porzingis stuff that really got me was hearing that the Celtics were calling for him. There's no way, right, that if Porzingis goes, that he would be shipped and put into a green uniform for him to lead the Celtics to hang another banner and come into Madison Square Garden year after year. I mean, would they really do something like that, Frank?
You know what? I question a lot of things that Phil Jackson does. I mean, I think most people do. But Phil Jackson is an old-school Knick, played under Red Holtzman. Everyone knows about the rivalry between the Knicks and the Celtics, Red Holtzman, Red Auerbach. I cannot imagine that Phil Jackson is sitting down entertaining, making a deal with the Boston Celtics. Plus, he also experienced the Boston Celtics as a coach of the Lakers, having played them in the finals twice and losing to them once and obviously winning his last championship. So I don't buy it. I can't imagine he's going to trade old school Nick, Phil Jackson, is going to be trading his best player to the Boston Celtics, regardless of what he might be getting back. I just don't believe it.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on radio stations across the country and audience.
If you like that, please download our app. There's lots of fun things there other than just more of the videos you just saw. You can call us from the app. You can email us from the app. Just download it. Trust me, you'll enjoy it.